do you think that now you have that audience? Has it added any extra pressure to you, like in terms of the expectation of, wow, I've really got to make the next one great as such?
Yeah, I mean, issues like issues wise, like 5 and 6, I've already written them, and I'd say I'm like 80 to 90% happy with each of those. So I might go through and fine tune them a little bit. And generally, our process is that I'll write the issue, I'll give it to Ben. He'll, do some pencils and some inks, and then we'll go back and maybe talk over it. And creative process wise, we just try and focus on telling the story, because obviously I know what's going to happen, where it's going to go. Delivering everything, definitely. Like when it ended on Friday, I don't. Literally, the last week, I feel like I've just been almost feel like I've been hit by a truck. Just mentally, I've been exhausted by it, because the Kickstarter ran for 35 days, and every day, you're on it from the moment you wake up. Even though obviously I work as well, like that you're on it like full time. Like you're on your Facebook, you're on the Instagram, you're going on the page. You're trying to think of anything and everything you can do in order to hopefully get in front of people.
Yeah.
Literally the last week I think it's like that, just like a huge adrenaline dump, just like, wow, like we've done it. And now it's just like, okay, we've still got to fulfill everything, obviously, which is, its own massive task. And, absolutely, like there's a lot of responsibility on us to make sure we get that done. This is our second Kickstarter, so I've got no issues with getting all that done. It's just, it just takes its toll, it takes its toll.
And what's the something I don't know how long it particularly takes to turn it around. So from a writing perspective, and then getting it onto Ben to do the drawings, what sort of time frame for an issue?
It depends. I mean, if you think of each page has to go through quite a few processes. So Ben would first of all, and obviously, unfortunately, he's not here to correct me should I get any of this wrong, but he would normally draw freehand on like an A3 piece of paper. So that would be his pencils. So he goes over first of all on a pencil, and then he goes on after that with an ink. He would then scan that in. He then colours it digitally, and he also does lettering digitally. I mean, they're normally 4 different jobs. Like if you was at Marvel or DC, you have one person does the pencils, another person does the inks, another person does the colouring, another person does the lettering. Plus, you then obviously, of course, got the writer as well. I mean, I would probably hazard a guess that each page probably ends up equating to, I don't know, somewhere in the region of 6 to 8 hours. One of the toughest things is actually lettering. As crazy as it seems, because it's just like little balloons. Getting those right and getting those correct, the way the text is, like the actual dialogue is fitted in. There's a huge art to it all.
Just to make it readable, I take it, so that it looks like it's flowing.
Yeah, essentially, because ideally with a comic panel, your eye should always be drawn from left to right. So as you go through reading it, so ideally, if person one is speaking, you want them to be on the left side of the panel. There's lots of, there's lots of rules and stuff when it comes to comic book making. I mean, you don't obviously have to stick to them. You probably should stick to a lot of them, but you don't. You can do your own thing at the same time, and that's probably one of the joys actually of being a small press indie guy. When we first started making the comic, we were like, okay, well, we have to have X amount of pages per comic because that's like industry standard. But it's like, well, we're our own thing, so we don't have to do that. If we need an extra page or two, we can do that. That's up to us. It's our choice. So at least that way, because obviously, ideally, we always want to end with that little bit of a cliffhanger. So you're like, what happens next?
Yeah, definitely. Well, with any comic book series or that can go into a TV show or a movie, which hopefully the Secret Protectors maybe one day. if you just a quick question on that, if you were Ben, who's the lead character, you could argue, who would be the guy you would want to play him?
I mean, if I could just say, I would prefer a TV series than a film series.
Why did you say that though? What? That's an interesting comment. What would be
storytelling? I think I just feel like you can tell a more in detail story, a more in depth story, especially when it comes to developing characters. I mean, with the Secret Protectors, because it's an ensemble, it's an ensemble team sort of thing. A bit like, I mean, you guys spoke about it just recently. You were talking about, obviously, the Snyder cut of Justice League, and how they tried to do what Marvel were doing off the bat without doing the necessary legwork of having the Iron Man film, having the Thor film, having the Cap film, and then also, in Iron Man 2, Black Widow turns up. In Thor 1, you've got Hawkeye for a few minutes. You'd already seen Nick Fury, so
you're laying the groundwork.
Yeah, so in order for it to be a film, I mean, even like an animated series, I think would be a better landing platform for it potentially than a film series, because where I'm not sure where, if you're looking at like a 3-act narrative, I'm not entirely sure in my own mind where the beginning, middle, and end would be when it comes to our story. Whereas obviously, if it's a TV show, you can have those begin, middle, and ends of each issue. I mean, for it to be a film, I think my point being is that it would have to be vastly different to what it currently is.
Yeah.
Too much compromise, I'm guessing.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, as for who would play Ben, to be honest, I would actually like an unknown to play Ben. I'd like someone who's never, not necessarily never worked before, but some
Joe blogs off the street.
Yeah. But no, someone who, the audience potentially doesn't have any preconceived ideas about. Someone.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I often find with a lot of shows that I enjoy the most, they're the ones where you're not familiar with a lot of the characters. I mean, one, for example, which leads into me talking about one of my favourite villains was in Daredevil, the series, which was on Netflix. And Wilson Fisk, or Kingpin. I mean, for me, I really struggled with this when we came up with the idea of talking about our favourite heroes and villains. I mean, there's so many options, really. I mean, one I mentioned to you, Matt, off air was Jim Carrey's Riddler in Batman. I thought he was hilarious. I thought he was brilliant. But if we're going to talk
really
about
the character,
but if we talk about actual villains in that sort of scenario of superheroes, Wilson Fisk was pure evil, and there was that kind of gangster mob sort of image that he held, but he also had that kind of, I don't know, that what I loved about it in the Daredevil series, the guy who played him, Adam, you probably know his name, Vincent
D'Onofrio.
That's it, Vincent D'Onofrio. Like, one, he was a brilliant actor. I've never seen him in anything before. I know he's been in other stuff. But for me, it was he had that soft side as well when he especially when he was around Vanessa, who I can't remember whether he actually marries her or not, but you had that. What I liked about it in Daredevil, and I think this relates back to what you were saying about a TV series, is that they even I'm sure they done like a whole episode which was just on him and painting the picture of him rather than it just being, here's your bad guy, he's going to go kill a load of people or beat up a load of people. But that's what I liked about that. But you had that two different sides of him, which I really liked. And then obviously he came back, I think, in the third series of that and was like even more evil. And some of the scenes where, I mean, I'm sure there was one where he was like, it was almost like Snatch or Lockstock, I can't remember which one, where he's slamming someone's head inside the door of a car. Like, it was grim, but amazing for mine.
Do you remember that I saw on the TV the other day, and they're repeating a series called Heroes? I can't remember what channel it was on, but again, I think that justifies your choice as well, in terms of, there's so many different characters on there. It plays to what James was saying, a lot of those, probably actors that you'd never seen before, and it was like that blank canvas that you were starting again, learning the sort of characters almost as the characters were learning it, as they were sort of finding their superpowers and things like that. And I thought that was very good at his time. I think he drifted off a bit, sort of in the third series, but yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah, I used to really love Heroes back in the day. I mean, like you said, it did definitely trail off, unfortunately. I mean, that was during the writer's strike time, wasn't it? So,
was it?
Yeah, there's a lot of shows, as we all know, that just really struggled throughout that period. But I mean, but going back to what you're saying, James, about Vincent D'Onofrio's portrayal of Kingpin, he brought a real vulnerability to it that potentially in a film you might not. Well, you just probably, a film being, a page, a page of your script normally equates to 1 minute of screen time. So with a film, if it's 2 hours, you're looking at like 120 pages. If you've got a series and you've got an hour-long slot each week, you add that up over 10 episodes or so, you've got so much more time to be able to
invest
in these characters.
Yeah, definitely.
With Fisk, I mean, one of the things that was, I mean, I don't want to go into too many spoilers in that, but they really tried to humanise him, and even with his his evilness, it was, he thought he was doing a good thing, a bit like Thanos, really. I mean, obviously a much smaller, less world-threatening, yet less universe-threatening version, but he thought that what he was doing was the good thing, and he was willing to get his hands dirty to do it.
Definitely.